Today, on the International Human Rights Day, as we observe the adoption of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, or the UDHR, we must confront some uncomfortable truths. The promises of equality, dignity, and justice enshrined in this document are being systematically betrayed by selective narratives and blatant biases in the global human rights discourse. This is not just a day for complacent celebration, but a moment to ask hard questions about the integrity of those who claim to champion humanity's most sacred rights. In an age where human rights advocacy has become a cornerstone of global discourse, troubling patterns emerge. Certain perceived violations are magnified, discussed endlessly, and met with global condemnation. Meanwhile, other equally severe, sometimes far more worse, atrocities are met with deafening silence, ignored, downplayed, or explained away, depending on the convenience of the prevailing narratives. The imbalance is not merely a matter of perception. It is reflected in the selective reporting by major human rights organizations across the globe. For example, why are human rights violations in Islamic nations, specifically in the Middle East, often overlooked by the so-called defenders of justice? Why do nations like India and Israel face relentless scrutiny and vilification when they take measures to protect their people and sovereignty, while unimaginable atrocities in other regions are met with silence? When incidents involving the Rohingyas are reported with consistent urgency, the plight of minorities facing violence in Bangladesh is overlooked. Reports from groups like the Human Rights Watch or the very famous Amnesty International seldom address these systematic atrocities with the same fervor, focusing instead on narratives that suit their own agendas. Even institutions like the Minority Rights Group or global foundations claiming to champion democracy appear to prioritize certain causes over the others. This is not a case of oversight, but a deliberate neglect of the one community's plight, while too much focus is laid on the other. Human rights monitoring organizations, like I have just mentioned, the Human Rights Watch, also often spotlight issues on plights of the Rohingya population with detailed and consistent reporting. However, there is a glaring lack of focus on the severe atrocities that are being faced by the minorities in Bangladesh. For instance, aside from a brief report by Ms. Meenakshi Ganguly on August 8, 2024, which mentioned vandalism and attacks on Awami League supporters, indirectly referencing violence against one or two Hindu families, there has been no sustained reporting on the ongoing brutality against the Hindu community at the hands of the radicalized Islamic fundamentalists in Bangladesh. This pattern of neglect is equally apparent in Amnesty International's way of reporting, which has produced only a single minimal article titled Bangladesh Interim Government Must Take Immediate Actions to Protect Hindus and Other Minority Communities, which was published on August 14, 2024. Beyond this, the continuous targeted violence against the Hindus and the other minority groups have gone unacknowledged by the so-called global defenders of human rights. In stark contrast, their platforms are replete with repetitive reports on the Rohingya community, detailing even the smallest of inconveniences the Rohingyas have to face. Similarly, the Open Society Foundation, which champions itself as a protector of human rights and democracy across the world, and the chosen one by God, who in the name of democracy shatters civilizations, seemed to have been least bothered about the plight of the Bangladeshi Hindus and the other minority groups. Although it is a given that they successfully created the turmoil, yet at least for the sake of a show-off also, the old Soros and his OSF did not seem to care much about the dying Hindus and the other minority groups in Bangladesh. Mark Malloch Brown, former president of the Open Society Foundations, also seemed to have met the Bangladesh's interim leader, Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus, yet not a single word was spoken about the atrocities that has been ongoing against the minorities in that nation. This glaring omission reveals the selective and convenient human rights advocacy driven by political agendas. This stark disparity also raises important questions about the selective prioritization of human rights issues by global organizations. The persistent silence on such targeted atrocities cannot be dismissed as mere coincidence but reflects a troubling bias in global human rights advocacy. The question is stark and unrelenting. Why are human rights violations in many Islamic nations rarely called out by the so-called human rights defenders of human rights across the world? Why are nations like India and Israel consistently vilified when they act to defend their own rights and security of their own people against targeted atrocities? Why does every countermeasure by Israel in Gaza draw global condemnation and widespread protests, while there is deafening silence over the horrors of the Sednaya prison in Damascus, Syria, which is also chillingly nicknamed the human slaughterhouse, where human beings are slaughtered with a cruelty that defies comprehension? Why is there no global outrage, no collective indignation when atrocities like the Kashmiri Hindu genocide unfolded, or is still unfolding, or when stones are hurled at our security forces by the radicalized mobs in Kashmir? Why is it that the world cries foul only when the Indian army retaliates or secures its borders to protect the people of the valley? Why is it always portrayed that the Hindu Meiteis in Manipur are the aggressors and the Christian Kukis are the victims without a thorough examination of facts? Why do separatist Khalistani elements who openly dishonored the Indian national flag and incite violence find tacit support and sanctuary in the West? Why this blatant discrimination against Hindus and Jews only? Why are the grievances of these communities routinely dismissed, their sufferings ignored, while every perceived slight against other is amplified? Is this the global standard of protecting human rights? If those who claim to be the protectors of human rights are selective in their advocacy, driven by political convenience rather than principle, are they truly the protectors? Or have they become violators themselves, complicit in perpetuating the very injustices they claim to oppose? These are the questions that demand answers, not tomorrow, not next year, but today, right now itself. On this day, as the World Mass International Human Rights Day, let us not be blinded by the double standards and selective narratives. Let us ask ourselves, who are our protectors, and are they truly deserving of our trust? I leave this question with you, my dear friends, as a challenge to reflect, confront, and demand accountability. Thank you.